Today we're going to talk a little bit about renders. So renders are super cool because they make things look really pretty. So for example, if you have made this awesome thing and you want to be able to sell it, that is something that you want to make it look good in order to do. And so what you're going to want to do is create an image of the thing that you've catted that looks really pretty and that can sell your product. So the way that we can do that is if you go into Solidworks add-ins, we're going to render this chair, then there's this button for Photo View 360. If you're using one of my computers, this may not work super well, so be prepared for this, but you also want to try to close down anything that is not this because it does take up a fair amount of processing power. So I'm going to go over to render tools now because I'm making a render. That won't be there until you press Photo View 360. You can see it kind of pop up as I go, and it will kind of take a minute, especially if you're on a slower computer. So now that I am on render tools, there's a bunch of different things that I can do. So first, I can edit my appearance. And this is things like changing the color, so I can just, make it like a bright purple or something like that. But I can also go over to this menu, and I have all these different materials. So I want this to be a wooden chair, so I can go to organic, and I can go to wood, and I want this, let's go mahogany. No, I actually like the cherry better. I think it looks nice. Maybe oak. I don't know too much about wood. And I can go down here and I have all these different options. I can say, ooh, unfinished varnished Japanese oak. I like the shininess of that. Okay, so now my chair is made out of varnished Japanese oak, which is pretty sweet. So I've got this chair. It has an appearance. I can add a scene as well, so if I edit scene, it's going to, again, kind of pop out some new menus. Right now it's on something pretty plain and simple. This can actually look really nice. I could put it in something like this, where it is more of a kind of a little bit of a shinier background. You could do something like a black background. Ooh, okay, now this is like a studio, so you've got all these lights in different places. I'm gonna go with just a basic studio backdrop, and I think that looks pretty nice. But there are also, these presentation scenes, so you can go with different landscapes, all that kind of stuff, depending on what you're working on. Now, we've got a background, we've got a scene. You can add in a bunch of other stuff. You can add in cameras, and the way you can do that is you go over here to this display manager, and then once we get into here, we have this scene lights and cameras. So you can add a camera if you want a particular place. You can, right now it has particular lights that are attached to the scene. You can adjust those. Honestly, I haven't had the most luck with that. If you're really good and know that you want something super specific, then those can be useful. But otherwise, they're kind of tricky to work with. So once you're happy with all of your setup and things like that, you can go over to an integrated preview or a preview window. I'm going to do integrated preview just because that is something that is going to make it a little bit easier for you all to see what's going on. And it's going to give me this thing that says I can either add a camera or turn on perspective view. So I'm just going to turn on perspective view. That is going to kind of set it, to a view that it is happy with. Now, you can't see this, but this has made my computer mildly unhappy to do. So again, if you're on one of my computers, you may not actually want to follow through with trying this, because my guess is that your computers are going to be even more unhappy than mine. Yeah, my computer is really unhappy. But basically from here, once you do I think it's actually the integrated preview that's making it really unhappy. There we go. Woo! Okay, so now we can see what this is actually going to look like when I render it. So rather than doing an integrated preview, which is kind of nasty, I'm going to go over and do a final render. This is when you are happy with how everything looks. I normally do a preview window. And again, this might take a minute to load, but I'm going to get a bunch of options in this window. Let me pull it up for you. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so here is my photo view window. Or it would be. Let's see. It's mildly unhappy. There we go. Okay, so it is starting to do my render. I can't tell if you guys can see this or not. Oh yeah, that's totally glitching out on the screen. But it's going to start to actually do the render, and what it turns out with is super cool. So let's give this a minute. Let me see if I can get this to show up for you guys. There we go. Okay, so what it does is it basically is walking through with these little boxes and rendering the thing as you go. And when this is done, then I will have this really pretty render. You can set up your final render settings in Solidworks. So if I go back over to Solidworks, then what I am going to see. Oh no, were you guys able to see any of that? No, you weren't. Okay, so there. So here you can see it is doing my render with these little blocks. You can change your final render settings, like you've got options right here. You can schedule the render, so if you are doing this and you want to like run it overnight because your computer's really angry about the fact that you're rendering something, then that is something that you can do. But this lets you make some really beautiful images that are fun to share of a thing that you've made. So this render is going to take a little while. I am gonna go ahead and kind of just let it go, but you can save this as a normal image file and it lets you share it with other people, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna mute the mic and just let this finish rendering so you can see what it looks like. That's always the goal.
Can I work like over here so my computer needs to charge?
Sure. You can work wherever you want. I mean, inside the classroom.
I kept forgetting to what? Nah, the programming thing. Oh. Yeah,
Good job.
I swear the second time I had typed in the time.sleep. I do not know if that was just like I completely like hallucinated time.sleep existing.
Time.sleep.
Such a Python command to turn off the light.
Time.sleep. Oh, I forgot about a flashlight. Yeah. I was so confused for a second. It's just setting.
Although isn't it supposed to be like
Automatic.
yeah.
I didn't plug it in until now, and for some reason the light is like exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah, it happens.
Let me just make it brighter.
Where are the circuit playground things?
Oh, in that, they're on the table. The bin's out already. Someone pulled it out for you guys.
Oh my goodness, I am blind. Okie dokie.
Not that hard. This is honestly, I'd rather do this or jump down the stairs and avoid death.
Hello. MS student.
Yes.
MS student. We're real secure.
Oh, you did the
Over and literally
alternating. Yeah, I just had mine so it's just for all on
Really?
yeah.
And I managed to find a setting where you can turn on the ones right next to it.
Yeah.
Just had to raise the value a bit so it wouldn't like, because when I had it at 45, it would essentially just kind of like flicker really quickly because the light kept triggering it to turn itself off.
Right, because the variability just in the sensor readings.
Well, so I just turned it up to like, I think like 50
Yes.
for a second.
What's wrong?
And then you start to put together like
Okay. Yeah. The computer does do exactly what you tell it to do, so I'm guessing it's something you typed in. You forgot to put a colon on the end of line 60 and line 62.
It doesn't say that's where it is.
It is
It says
at
it's
that
on
or above it.
61.
It's at that line or above it.
Where are the mice again?
Right side, right edge of the blue table.
Hey, yeah, that works.
Dude, is it coding?
That's really cool.
How do you do that? By the way, this is right there.
You can help each other. Like this, you can discuss. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I highly recommend it.
I also got like this nice little purple. What do you mean? It's what you're working on right now. Yeah, that's what you did there. You just went like a step further. Well, you just
Yes. What's up?
you went with where's yeah. Let's see. You just have shootable values. Oh my god, those are very high values. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I would just
It's
run
giving
that
you the full
run
width.
the serial
It's just a
right
different
now.
one. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just had it in one
No,
step.
that's your job.
So it was just like it's
Yeah.
It's not working. Gotta
uh,
figure it out. Does it have the? Oh,
yeah.
we're gonna try
Well,
doing
mine
like
looks like-
entering the base.
mine is very
input
simple.
there. Make sure it's on the right base.
Oh, but it's only one. Why are you only one?
And I also did I did well the calibrations are different, so you're probably gonna want to just check because your value seems to be naturally much higher. But yeah, I just did I just filled it and I went on to one of those color picker things and found a color that I liked.
Oh, dog.
Yeah.
I used to be on
Yeah. I just took out the LF statement.
Oh, because it has to be 15.
Or I just never put it in the first place. It was that was phrased like an optional thing.
Wait, so what do you do for the L's? Just fill off.
Yeah, CPA cycle.
There we go. Don't judge me, baby.
Right, just use that value.
There's a light that's in.
Alright, well, I tried to show you guys the final render, but my computer is being silly and not letting that happen. Trust me, it looks like a pretty sweet wooden chair. You can see this, but we can't zoom in so much. I promise you, it is high quality and it looks neat. Obviously, renders take a while and is not something you should just do willy-nilly. I highly recommend adjusting your settings so that you get something that is reasonable, right? So right now, preview quality is good, render quality is best. I can lower, for example, my render quality and it would go a lot faster. So just keep that in mind as you play with this, that the higher quality everything is, the more painful the outputting process is going to be.